Hello, everyone. I'm here. Did you get a notification? Technical difficulties. But we're going to get started. I do apologize for the delay. I apologize for all the challenges. And I want to say thank you to my supporters, followers, friends, family that are watching me. I want to say thank you. And we're getting started. So, for those of you who have joined me for the first time, I am your patient advocate, Monica. And today's video is going to be about it's a family thing and you can learn to understand it. And before I get started on all of that good stuff, I'm going to tell you first of all who I am and the reason that you're joining my channel. My name is Monica Rockwell and I'm a sickle cell patient. Not only am I a sickle cell patient, but I am a patient advocate for the Southwest Georgia region, covering 14 counties. But I am a global brand on social media, so people from around the world reach out to me and ask me questions, and because of the information that I share on all of my social media platforms. And let me give you a little bit more background about me. Growing up, I've always been in and out of the hospital all of my life. My family can attest to that. My friends can attest to that. But in 2013, me being the person that I am, I began to train for a marathon because I'm always setting fitness goals for myself. So what I end up doing is I started preparing myself to do marathon training. As I began to train, one day in June, my body decided it had other plans. So with that being said, I collapsed. I passed out at my parents' house, and they rushed me to Phoebe Putney Memorial Hospital emergency room. So in the emergency room, the doctors ran every test in the medical book to find out what it is that caused me to collapse. And what they ended up finding out after going through all of the tests in the medical book, they came to the final conclusion that I had sickle cell beta thalassemia with congestive heart failure. So that was my final diagnosis. I ended up being in the hospital 2 weeks in a coma, and I ended up staying there 5.5 weeks, and the other 4.5 weeks I was on the floor. So that's how my journey began. And in 2013, while I was in Albany going through crisis and not knowing what's going on, not knowing what sickle cell is, I began to go through the city of Albany to find out where are the resources, where can I learn about this disease, and who can I talk to about sickle cell. Through my search, I could not find any answers for patients that were over the age of 21. And by looking at me, you can tell I'm over the age of 21. So the first thing I began to do after having those diagnoses and not find the resources in my local area, I ended up start doing research online to find out, first of all, what sickle cell is, what beta thalassemia is, what congestive heart failure is, and how do you get it. So after going through a little research and the things that I didn't understand, I began to connect to resources that could help me understand what it was that I had. So the first thing I did was I joined the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America out of Baltimore, Maryland. I became a patient and a patient advocate through their organization. I made a donation and I began to connect and had access to more resources, which was a great thing for me. I need more resources and I need to understand what it is that I have. And to physically connect with people, I said, well, how can I connect with someone local? And of course, being in the state of Georgia, everything is in Atlanta. So what I ended up doing was I was paired up with the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia. And every time they had events, they would invite me to events or they would send me emails. And what I ended up doing was I subscribed to their newsletter. And that was another way that I got a lot of information about sickle cell and events around the world and different sickle cell organizations and what they offer, because both of those organizations connect with other organizations. And this SCDA out of Baltimore, they're the national organization, so they connect with everyone. So after going through that phase and dealing with what I was diagnosed, I kind of wasn't where I needed to be. So I prayed about it and I got answers. And I remember thinking, Lord, I really don't understand, and where do I go from here? So what ended up happening is, I remember Oprah Winfrey doing an interview about finding your community. So I said, Lord, I think that was the answer for me. So what I ended up doing was, somehow, I can't tell you how, I just remember finding this organization called the Sickle Cell Community Consortium, founded by Dr. Lakia Bailey out of Atlanta, Georgia, or Cummings, Georgia. So I went to my first, what they call Leadership Summit. And in that Leadership Summit, I was in hog heaven, because I found a lot of people that were just like me. And that organization is an organization that are ran by patients. So I became what they call a partner. I am what they call an independent patient advocate. So many resources, so many people, so many answers, and oh my goodness. So that's when I found my community, and I found out where I was and where I needed to go. I met other patients that had sickle cell beta thalassemia. I met people from California. I met people from Canada. I met people from Florida. I met people from around the world. And that was great for me, because God knew what I needed. And there was a love in that community that no one else could understand. So I ended up becoming a partner, and it became a great resource for me. And the Leadership Summit was actually how I was able to meet other sickle cell patients that were YouTubers just like I was. So there are a lot of sickle cell YouTubers out there, and some of them just don't talk about sickle cell. They talk about other things: beauty within sickle cell 101, bold looks for sickle cell. There are so many organizations out there that have the platform of sickle cell, and a lot of them are nonprofits that also talk about sickle cell, educate you about sickle cell, set before pharmaceutical companies, and talk to different people to make sure that patients have what they need. And I like that we adopted the motto. I don't know who the motto is from, but we've adopted the motto, nothing for us without us. And that's a great motto to have, because people are trying to come up with cures for sickle cell, and you can't come up with cures for sickle cell without patients. So that's how that journey began. And then I began to do more things with the consortium and everything. And what also led me to the organization, this is something a lot of people don't know, but in my community in 2015, our sickle cell clinic was actually closed. And I know the question is, so what do you do when your sickle cell clinic closed? So after the clinic closed, I became more of an advocate like never before. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me motivated. And with that being said, one of the things that I do want to talk about that I'm very, 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 very blessed to have, and which people remind me of how blessed I am, I have a wonderful, wonderful medical team that supports me. And I remember one day going to the clinic. Before the clinic closed, they wouldn't get there till like 9 o'clock or whatever time they would get there. And I remember asking Dr. Cooler and nurse practitioner Nadine, what can we do to fix this problem? And I remember Dr. Cooler saying, you know, Monica, to fix this problem, as a doctor and the medical team, we can only do so much. The patients themselves have to fight for their clinic. So I said, okay. And from there, I became a more aggressive patient advocate. So once the sickle cell clinic closed, I branded the name Sawika Sickle Cell Awareness, and that's how I started my advocacy work, because I didn't want them to know my name. I wanted them to know Sawika Sickle Cell Awareness, which is the area that I cover. And after that, I began to hold events, and the first event that I coined was Come Help With Us, which this event, it gives you all the resources that are around you in this area for sickle cell patients. Because sometimes as a sickle cell patient, when you're going through crisis, the last thing you want to hear is somebody tell you, you need to either go to Atlanta, Georgia, or you need to go to Augusta, Georgia to be treated for sickle cell, because there's really not a specialist in this area There are doctors here at the cancer center that knows how to treat sickle cell, but that's not their specialty. And so, but I'm thankful for the doctors that are at the cancer center that do treat and manage sickle cell patients. So, and the first thing we're going to talk about, Monica, you keep talking about sickle cell. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, what is sickle cell? Sickle cell is an inherited blood disorder. And I love the way that the World Health Organization defines sickle cell. Sickle cell is an inherited blood disorder, and your normal red blood cells, which are a circle, becomes into a crescent shape. And it comes into a crescent shape because there's not enough oxygen flowing through the body. Hence, your body goes into crisis. You have sickle cell pain because of the crescent shape that's in your body, and your blood cells become abnormal. Then the next question a lot of people ask me, so Monica, what is thalassemia? I'm glad you asked. You have two types of thalassemia. You have alpha thalassemia and you have beta thalassemia. Well, where do those names come from? There's a protein in everyone's body. Everybody have an alpha protein gene and have a beta protein gene. So when your alpha beta protein gene is not functioning as it should because it's starved from not having enough oxygen in the blood, and after a certain period of time, when there's no oxygen in the blood, then your organs begin to become damaged or they're not functioning as they should. So, and goes the same thing with beta thalassemia, which is what I have. I have beta thalassemia because my beta proteins aren't functioning as they should. They're starved because of all the ordeals being in and out of the hospital. My beta proteins don't function like they should. So with that being said, let's get into the being a carrier of sickle cell or the trait. And what's interesting about the trait is I've met a lot of people that feel like, well, Monica, I have the trait, so I don't go through what you go through. But being a carrier of the sickle cell trait, you still have some of the side effects, or you still deal with some of the things that people with the disease deal with when you don't manage your health or you don't manage your body. And the thing that you deal with, one of the things that are kind of exclusive to having the trait is what's called renal medullary carcinoma. That's a form of cancer that they get, and it's like a kidney cancer that some people with the sickle cell trait get. Because their kidney, after a certain period of time, it doesn't function like it should. And it could be treated. So having the trait, you still can get some of the things that sickle cell patients get. Another thing that I want to go into, you can't just talk about sickle cell without talking about the complications of sickle cell. And this is a topic that's very, very, very important to me. And the reason that this topic is very important to me is because most sickle cell patients don't die from the disease itself. They die from the complications of sickle cell. Well, Monica, what do you mean by the complications of sickle cell? There are a lot of patients that have strokes, and TIA is a form of stroke. I know my father, he has sickle cell anemia, and he has TIA, which means he's having strokes. And from what I've seen on social media, there are a lot of patients now going through where they're having major or minor strokes. So that's one of the things, that's one of the complications. Not only do this patient have sickle cell, they're having strokes. There are some patients that are having diabetes. Can you imagine having diabetes and sickle cell? Your body is constantly not doing what it should be doing because you have to manage your blood count, your hemoglobin. You also have to manage your sugar or your insulin. Make sure your body is producing what it's supposed to produce when you're diagnosed with diabetes. Another thing that you want to consider that a lot of patients have, and myself, heart disease. I have congestive heart failure. So one of the things that I'm managing with sickle cell beta thalassemia is heart disease. And with heart disease and congestive heart failure, I have to take what is called Lasix. That's because my body retains fluids. So when my body retains fluid, I'm on a diuretic. And my medical team recommend, Monica, you can only intake 2,000 milliliters of fluid. That includes what you eat and what you drink. And cut back on things with salt in it. And I'm working on that. Still working on that. But I'm much better than I have been. So having heart disease, there are a lot of things you have to monitor with heart disease. And in this community that I'm in, there are a lot of patients in this area with heart disease, whether it's congestive heart failure, whether it's having a heart attack, no matter what it is. And there are a lot of people that have to have a heart replacement. So that's very important too, to know what's going on with your health and your heart. And a lot of heart disease can be managed better with lifestyle. A lot of times people don't like for me to talk about lifestyle, but lifestyle does play an important role in your health journey. Whether it's simple, sometimes you can start with simple things. Cut your portion control down. If you eat a lot of greasy foods, or you eat a lot of things that you feel like you need, or habits, and some habits you can't break, just cut your portions. And with cutting your portions, intake and increase water. Water also detoxifies the body, and that's something that people don't think about a lot. And with detoxifying the body, one of the things that it also helped with, and one of the things that was recommended to me, and I've seen a difference in my body, drinking alkaline water. So, Monica, how do you drink alkaline water? One of the ways you can turn your regular water to alkaline water is just adding a lemon to it. Adding a lemon to your water detoxifies the body, and it sends all the impurities out. And it's not something you do once a day. And you can start off doing it once a day, but each meal kind of adds some lemon water to your drink to make sure your body's purified. And to kind of keep make sure you're in good health. You definitely want to make sure you're in good health, managing your health. Another thing that a lot of patients get is called acute chest syndrome. And when I was first released from the hospital, that was one of my diagnoses. And when you have acute chest syndrome, it still falls upon the pulmonary and critical care. So what you want to do, you having a hard time breathing, and you shortness of breath, having acute chest syndrome. So I have a home tank that I use at night, and I also have a portable tank. And most of the time when people see me walking around with my red bag, my oxygen tank in the bag, a lot of times people don't know that's what's in that bag, but that's actually what's in my bag, my oxygen tank. And it's something I have to have because I have shortness of breath or I'm very fatigued. I get on my oxygen tank. DVT, PE, deep vein thrombosis, and pulmonary embolism also is one of the complications of sickle cell. So, and that's something that you have to consider. That means you have a blood clot. If you have a PE, which is pulmonary embolism, that means you have a blood clots on your lungs. If you have DVT, which is deep vein thrombosis, you're having blood clots on your legs or other parts of your body. So you kind of want to manage that. And when you're dealing with blood clots, you really, really want to cut back on green vegetables. And I know I talk about green vegetables all the time because they thicken the blood, especially if you have anemia. You need thickened blood and you need healthy blood. And one of the things that every sickle cell patient have to take is folic acid to manage their blood and manage having anemia. So that's one of the things that's very important. And viruses. A lot of time, a lot of patients, one of the patients that has passed, I won't call his name for HIPAA reasons, that he was going to the hospital, hospitalized because he was getting infections, different types of infections. So he was in and out of the hospital because when you have sickle cell and you're taking hydrurea, it weakens your immune system. And this is one of the things I don't think a lot of people know about sickle cell. Sickle cell is a form of cancer. So that's something you have to take into consideration when you're dealing with a sickle cell patient. And I know most people, when they think of a sickle cell patient, they think of a patient that's always in pain, always in the hospital, always in the ER. That's a part of having sickle cell, but that's not always the case. There are a lot of sickle cell patients that are living full lives, healthy lives, and they're doing a lot of great things in the world. There are sickle cell patients that are running Fortune 500 companies. There are a lot of sickle cell patients that are running successful nonprofit organizations. And there are some patients that are traveling the world doing what they do or doing what they were born to do. So I want you to take that into consideration as well the next time you see a sickle cell patient or you talk to a sickle cell patient. And as I transition out talking about the complications, the next thing we're going to talk about is the cure, which a lot of people have inboxed me, emailed me, text messaged me, and did different things about, Monica, you can be cured from having sickle cell. So today I want to go into more depth about what it means to be cured from sickle cell, or what the cure is for sickle cell. And there are two into three things that I'm going to talk about when it comes to the cure. But before I get started, I want to play Janelle Stevens' story, because her story has went viral, because she's a sickle cell patient that was cured from sickle cell through the HIV virus. So I'm going to let that play, and while that's playing, we're going to get ready and talk about it on the other side.
Some studies out there, more slowing down. Targets and accurate cellular performance going on now. This is your local Lander dealer to test run the 2019 Highlands, starting with something $25,900. Overtime, Dan Silvio talks with Dr. John LaRue.
John, you reported on a medical breakthrough on 60 Minutes this week. How significant is this for sickle cell anemia?
I think it's a big deal. It's a proof of concept. We can actually do this. We can fiddle with the genes, and we can cure somebody with sickle cell anemia. Are you daring to say there's a cure for sickle cell anemia with this treatment? I am daring to say a cure for sickle cell disease may even be now at hand.
Was there a voice in your head that was telling you, let him say the word cure, I'm not going to say it?
Oh, I would never have said the word cure. We're people of science, but you don't want to jinx it. Okay, we're going to say it. But yeah, I think from everything it looks like a cure. And for me, it's especially emotional, because from 1976 to 1986, 10 years, when I was seeing a lot of people with sickle cell anemia, and I can tell you their names still, won't for HIPAA reasons, but one after the other, they died.
You couldn't help them.
All you could do was give them pain medicine. So it was a very helpless feeling. So I was taught, first month of medical school, someday we're going to have a cure for sickle cell anemia. It was 1976. And so for me to see that patient right in front of my eyes was cured.
You're talking about Janelle Stevenson.
Janelle Stevenson.
Please relax. Boom. So when you started recording this story, did you know what the outcome was going to be, that this would be successful?
Not at all. In fact, I didn't know if it was going to work. Janelle hadn't gotten any treatment yet. Her whole life, she's been a sick person.
It's a very sharp, like stabbing, and almost feels like bone-crushing pain.
She thought she was going to die early. She had a lot of friends who died early. You see
it's a really rough disease, and I would never want to see an offspring go through it.
And she also risked her life to even go through this.
60 Minutes has aired stories about the dangers of altering genes, messing with the human genome. Is that fear part of this story?
Yes. Because no matter how you're doing it, you're fiddling with the genes of a human being. Once you put that gene into somebody, you can't unput that gene into somebody. At least not now. In the future, they talk about having a kill switch, so that if things go wrong, you can somehow turn the gene off. But that's one of the big fears. There have been real calamities, death from gene therapy in the past. When you talk to Janelle, she knew all this. This is fancy genetic tinkering. And it involves putting different kind of genes inside of you that you normally don't have.
Right.
Does that give you any pause?
I was terrified at first. I think they were using the HIV virus or something just because it spread so well.
A weekend HIV.
Right, of course, of
What we
course.
give you HIV.
Of course, of course. For anyone who was around during the HIV epidemic, going back to the 80s.
March of 1981, my first patient with HIV. First bed on the left in the intensive care.
Now you're doing a 60-minute story, and HIV is really the secret weapon to curing disease.
Isn't that amazing? This is a great example of why you have to put money into basic research. Who would have known that figuring out how the HIV virus works would help you probably cure sickle cell anemia someday? We don't know what we're going to use. We're building up all these tools. We're doing all this basic research. If I someday develop some disease, I'm going to want a cure for that or a good treatment for that day. Well, it takes 10, 20, 30 years maybe to come up with that. So when I see Janelle, encapsulated in Janelle and in her success, is so much.
These are the kind of things I've always wanted to do. Just an evening stroll. Not to do it. Etsy is the place to find new favorites. The things we hold on to. Sold by real people and made for all of life's moments, both big and small. Belongings don't just show what we care about, they show who we are. Shop Etsy.com.
Okay. The one thing I hope everyone took away from that video is that Dr. LaPook didn't give her HIV. What they end up doing, Dr. Jonathan LaPook and Dr. Julie Cantor from the University of Alabama, they're all working out of the National Institute of Health on a cure for sickle cell. And the thing about this particular cure is they weaken the HIV virus. And I know the first thing that stood out in most people's head is they took the HIV virus. No, they weakened the HIV virus. And to give you a little backstory on sickle cell, if you look back into history, especially in Africa, and what's interesting about having sickle cell in times past, because a person had sickle cell, they could not get malaria. I've done a lot of research on that, and I've looked at a lot of medical magazines, and the biggest thing that they talk about is if a person had sickle cell, they were not able to get malaria or certain other type of diseases because the sickle cell blocked it, which is good. And I think it's interesting now that they're using a weakening version of HIV to cure sickle cell. So there's constant research going on. And I know you're asking, well, how did they do it? Let me make sure I put this disclosure out there or this disclaimer. I'm not a licensed medical professional, but I am a researcher when I see material on different things because I like to be knowledgeable on what's going on in the medical community when I'm working with patients or when I'm doing presentations or when I'm talking to whether it's a patient, whether it's a family member, whether it's anybody in that patient's network. And then they always ask me, well, Monica, what's your perspective on what was played on CBS about HIV being the cure for sickle cell? And one of the things that I did go do is I went on YouTube, I watched the video, and I was able to pull up the transcript of what was said and what was done. And two names did pop up, Dr. Jonathan LaPook and Dr. Julie Cantor popped up because they're doing continuous research on HIV being a weakened version of HIV being a cure for sickle cell. And what is done in that process is also called gene therapy. What gene therapy is they remove the cells and the genes that are not functioning as they should and replacing them with healthy cells. And it's genetically done. It's kind of like engrafting cells and genes and all of those different things. So, and I'm not going to go into detail about that because I'm not a licensed medical professional on that. But HIV is one of the cures. And the bone marrow transplant and the stem cell transplant is another thing that cures sickle cell, especially if you have massive bone loss and you need your bones, you need your marrows redone, because there are a lot of sickle cell patients that have hip replacement. So in order to better manage sickle cell with having massive bone loss, they do bone marrow transplants. But before doing bone marrow transplants, one thing I want people to consider is being registered with the National Bone and Marrow Institute. Because when you register, they do a lot of testing, determine who are matches for different people. And sometimes people say you can be cured, but the question when they say you can be cured, is there a match for you to have the cure? And to me, I feel like my brother is my match, but I'm not sure because we haven't gone through the testing process. And if I was to go through the testing process and he is a match, the thing that they don't tell you is I'll be in the hospital for 4 to 5 days to make sure that the transplant took. And one of the things you have to take that I've learned from someone that has had a kidney transplant is you have to take anti-rejection medicine. That is all a part of the process of having transplants done. And you have to go through consultation first. You have to go through a medical organization or a medical facility to go through the consultation process to know whether there is a match for you or not and whether you can be cured or not. And one of the things that people don't consider a lot is sometimes there's not a match. And there's a documentary out there called Spilled Milk, and the guy Omar in that movie, he did a great talk on that because he no longer has his parents, or he don't have a sibling. There isn't a match for him, so there isn't a cure for him. There are some people that are not going to be cured from sickle cell, despite of what the world or society tell them. You can't be cured. Maybe you can, and maybe you can't be cured from sickle cell. And so that's something you have to consider when you constantly tell a sickle cell patient you don't have to have the disease. And from my personal experience and from my personal life, I've managed sickle cell very well. So the question is, will I go through the consultation or go through the process of being cured from sickle cell? And I know, according to the medical community, I have up until the age of 50. Next month, I'll be turning 45, so I have 5 years to decide whether I'm going to get a cure, whether I'm going to go and do the gene therapy or do the bone marrow transplant or the stem cell transplant. That's a decision I have to make, and I have 5 years to decide whether I'm going to do it or not. I doubt I do it, but things could change. So that's one of the things that I definitely wanted to talk about when you say a person has a cure. And I'm not going to go into a lot of medical details of how these cures work because I'm not a licensed medical professional, but there are some things I want you to consider. And that's the reason I'll be talking about it. I want you to consider whether or not a person can be cured. What are the qualifications? Does this person have a match? Maybe there's a match for me. Maybe there's not a match for me. Maybe there's a match for other patients. Maybe there's not a match for other patients. You have to take that in consideration when you tell a person, oh, you can be cured. So, and that's another thing, you have to go through the registry. And what's interesting, when I did the event Come Hub With Us this year, there was a great organization called Lifelink of Georgia. And in that presentation, the presenter said, sometimes when people are organ donors, You can be an organ donor, but that doesn't say that your organ qualified to be used. Because if you're a drinker, if you're a smoker, you're an organ donor, they still can't use your organ. Because if you smoke, you could have lung damage, you could have kidney damage. There's no other telling what could be done. Or if you drink, your liver, you could have cirrhosis of the liver, you could have other medical issues. And the reason that you can't be a donor, even though it's in your heart, you have good intentions of, you want to be a donor for your mother, you want to be a donor for your father, you want to be a donor for your sister, you want to be a donor for your brother, but because you aren't taking care of your body or managing your health like you should, you might not qualify. But your intentions are good, which is good. I know people's like, well, Monica, if I could be a donor, I would. And I'm looking at your lifestyle, and I don't think you don't qualify for me or anybody else if you don't have healthy eating habits or healthy lifestyle. If you don't exercise, if you don't do anything to maintain your health. Definitely drink a lot of water. Even if you don't eat right, you definitely need to drink water and flush those impurities out. Another thing I want you to consider when you talk about the cure also is when you're dealing with transplants, whether it's a kidney transplant, because there are a lot of people that need kidney transplant or they need heart transplants. Make sure you take care of yourself. If you really consider being a donor, you definitely want to take care of your bodies, because the medical community is going to look at all that. They're going to do a lot of testing to see whether you have a healthy functioning heart, a healthy functioning kidney, a healthy functioning liver. So whatever, or if your tissues are healthy, have you taken care of your body where the tissues that you want to donate, whether it's the eye tissue, skin tissue, or you take care of your body well enough to be a successful donor, because you can donate organs and they're not qualified for whatever the patient needs. I want you to consider that when you're looking at or you want to be a donor for a patient. Another thing that I want you to consider too is, ain't nobody trying to cure you for your organs. And I know that's the misconception that a lot of people do have. Well, they will probably want me dead so they can use my organs. No, they don't. They don't want you to die. They want you to live a healthy life, a full life, a long, healthy life, as long as you can live. Because your loved ones want you here as long as possible. They want to love on you. They want to see you. They want to talk to you. They want to be around you. So none of that's going to take it. Whenever your number is up or your time is up, that's when you're going to leave anyway. But being a donor is a great thing. Another thing that I want to talk about that in the sickle cell community we're working on is blood donations. There are a lot of patients that have that do blood donation, that need blood donations because they're having blood exchanges or blood transfusion. You can be a donor, but being a donor, another thing that I want you to consider is ethnicity does make a difference. And I know, being an African American myself, we're not big donors. So if I needed something right now, I'm hoping and praying that there's a donation for my blood type. Look at the numbers. A white person, there's a 77% match or whatever they're trying to do, whether it's blood exchange, whether it's organ donation, or whatever it is. It's 77% for African, it's 77% for whites, it's 57% for American Indians or Alaskan Natives, it's 46% for Hispanics or Latinos, it's 41% for Asian or Pacific Islanders, and it's only 23% for African Americans. I want you to consider that when you think about the cure, or when you're thinking about whether a patient needs blood donation or not, whether you A type, B type, or O is universal. So consider that when you consider the needs of a sickle cell patient. And the next thing that I'm going to get ready to transition into is the telehealth, my favorite topic. So we're going to get on to telehealth next. And I'm going to play a video of how telehealth works.
share input.
Telehealth is video chatting. Telehealth gives patients access to medical professionals. And what you have to consider or think about is when telehealth is going on, the website that they're using is HTTPS. And anytime a website has S on it, that means it's a locked site and it's a secured site. So, and I'm glad that I have access to telehealth because my doctor is in Augusta, Georgia, and which is great because when I'm going through, I'm not feeling the best and dealing with my sickle cell issues. I'd rather see a doctor that knows me and knows what I'm going through, and then he's a specialist. There are a few sickle cell specialists that in the United States is very limited on sickle cell specialists. A lot of other doctors specialize in so many other types of cancers, but a sickle cell specialist, there are very few of them. There are more patients that are going to school to be a sickle cell specialist, whether it's a doctor or a nurse, which is a great thing, or they're going in the area that there are needs for, like going into whether it's for the heart issues, pulmonary issues, and other issues, which is a great thing because what better person to be a doctor than a person that's a patient as well. So that's a bonus, that's a plus there. And there are more patients that are going to medical school or they're advocating or they're going into the pharmaceutical field, which is a great thing because it's definitely needed. And who knows better what you need than you do? That's why as a patient advocate, I know what I need as a patient. And I talk about that all the time. I know that I need a sickle cell specialist. I know that I need a primary care physician. I know that I need social workers. I know that I need nurses. I know everything that I need as a patient. And having access to those resources are great. And they're able to explain things that I'm not able to explain because they went to school for it. They're knowledgeable of it. Like I know what a social worker is, but I'm not a social worker. I know people that are, so they understand how to communicate to the patient. They understand how to communicate with the family of the patient to make sure that they get the things that that patient needs. Like when I was first diagnosed, I didn't know how to get access to have an oxygen tank. I have the best social worker in the world. Even though she's passed, she's still a great social worker. She made sure I had my oxygen tank. She made sure I had my medicines. She made sure I had everything I need to live a life of a wellness and health journey. In my health journey, she was there. My primary care physician, he was there. And then I like the fact that every primary care physician, family physician, or internal medicine physician, they take preventive measures. And that's something I don't think people consider when they say, well, I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. Your primary care physician can prevent a lot of things. If you see signs of you maybe developing diabetes, or you having issues with heart disease, or you're having issues with, I remember growing up having challenges with bronchitis. I was diagnosed with bronchitis, but I wasn't treated for bronchitis. And thank God and now I'm being treated for bronchitis. I go to immune therapy every Monday. Every Monday morning, I go to immune therapy. And if I don't go every Monday morning, I go on a Thursday. because my doctor is rebuilding my immune system. And that is so important to me because rebuilding my immune system, it helps me live a full life. It helps me to do the things that I'm able to do or the things that I'm called to do. And I love what I do. I love being a patient advocate. I love being the solution to the people in this community because a lot of times people don't know the needs of a sickle cell patient, and people reach out to me all the time. And it's interesting now doing a lot of health fairs and being a vendor for a lot of events. And one of the things that's kind of tugging at me now, which is good, I'm getting a lot of response from teachers that have kids that have sickle cell and they don't know what to do with them. I think that's great that they're looking for resources and material to better understand their students. And that's why my mission, vision, and purpose statement changed from just being resourceful to sickle cell patients, friends, and family. It's their whole network. I have business owners and bosses and managers and leaders and co-workers. Well, I know my co-worker has sickle cell and I don't know what's going on. I know they've missed a few days of work and I don't know what to do. And I'm able to share that information with them. And chances are, if they're not at work or something is going on, a couple of things could be going on with that patient. That patient could be extremely fatigued. I go through a lot of fatigue. When I do a lot of stuff, I become fatigued. So that person could be dealing with fatigue. They could be in pain crisis, especially with the weather constantly changing. 1 minute it's cold, 1 minute it's hot. And the temperature has gotten as hot as 115 degrees outside, and that's hot. Heat drains you. If nobody else tells you, I'm going to be the one to tell you. Heat drains you, and then you become dehydrated. So any number of things can be going on. A lot of sports take place outside. So I'm hoping people are drinking enough water. If you're not drinking enough water, at least drink Gatorade. Gatorade, it put those electrolytes back in your body, and it kind of take the pressure off you being dehydrated. Dehydration will send patients into crisis. So that's one of the things that you have to consider when you're dealing with a sickle cell patient, dealing with women that are now with the way pregnancy is going on and health is going on in the health community. A lot of women can be tested while they're pregnant, whether their child has sickle cell disease or the sickle cell trait. That's another area that has reached out to me. Monica, can you start talking to mothers that are pregnant with children that either have the sickle cell disease or the sickle cell trait? That's an area that I'm going to have to do more research on before I tackle that, because I want to be knowledgeable of what I need to know when dealing with mothers or fathers with kids that have sickle cell. It wasn't an area that I thought about going in because there are a lot of resources for that area, but I am going into that area because there's a need for that area. So that, and I think that's the area that I'm called to, because it's something I understand, and I like the fact that people that have reached out to me gave me a different perspective on why I should reach out to those areas. And one of the things that they said to me, especially some teachers and some principals, they were like, well, Monica, they need to see you. They need to see a sickle cell patient that's living a full life, a healthy life, and that they're living past the age of 21, and they're living past the age of 40. So let them see that, because on my board that I have when I do health fairs, I have a lady that's Nigerian, and the picture that I have up, she's on that picture, she's 90 years old, but the last time I checked, she's 94 years old, and she has sickle cell disease in Nigeria. And I remember them interviewing her, and I know the biggest thing that she said to living a long life, a healthy life, is you have to keep going. Whatever keeps you going is what's going to keep you alive. Sometimes you have to fight to live. You have to have a reason to live. And that's another thing I don't think a lot of people talk about, what people are going through. You have to have the will, and you have to fight to live. Sometimes I tell people it's a joke, and I'm serious at the same time. I fight to live because I want to see my nieces and nephews graduate from high school and college. I want to see people getting older. I want to see the vision that I have for this community coming to a full manifestation. I want to see those things. I want to travel to Africa. I want to travel to Canada. I want to travel to Europe. I want to travel to Africa. I want to travel to a lot of other places. I want to do that medical missionary work that I set out a goal for, and that I want to see the manifestation of, because God says the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, and I want to see all of God's glory and fullness in this earth. So a lot of times when you're going through, you have to go through that fight. And sometimes I work with patients, and it breaks my heart to hear when a patient say, you know, Monica, I don't want to fight this fight no more. You have to have a reason to leave. And that's something that people don't think about. But as an advocate, being out there in the field, being out there in the trenches, being out there in the vineyard, these are some of the things that I see. I hear people say, Monica, I'm tired of fighting this fight. Monica, I'm tired of dealing with this pain. I've never felt pain this bad, and I'm tired of this pain. I've been in pain. I've been there, so I do understand. And that's one of the things that I do that a lot of people don't know. Sometimes when I'm going through, I think about the people that love me. I think about the people that say, Monica, you can't leave me now. My family says it, and that means a lot to me. My friend says it, and that means a lot to me. And other people in the community say, Monica, you have a lot of work ahead of you. And people that don't know me say that. And that gives me that will to live or that purpose to live. I know there are people that need me, and there are people that love me. So, and love conquers all. And I remember one of my doctors saying that was interesting. And once I tell you this is the conclusion of my presentation, and then I'll get into questions. I remember my CDC doctor saying that. He's like, Monica, I see you go through a lot. You've been in the hospital. He said, and I've seen you at death's doors so many times. And many people have seen me at death's doors, but the love of my family is what brought me back. And that's one of the things that I talk about too. When you know that somebody loves you, that's the healing medicine that you can't buy, you can't get in a bottle. When you know somebody loves you and you have a reason to live, it makes all the difference in the world. And that's medicine that you just can't buy. Just knowing somebody loves you and knowing somebody's going to be there for you, that's healing within itself. And now I'm going to get into the questions and answers. I don't know if there are any questions that have been submitted or not. So, but we have a few more minutes before I close out this presentation. One of the things that I want to do that I haven't done before that I got to do. One of the things I definitely want to do is I want to say thank you. I have to say thank you to a lot of people. And one of the people that I want to thank, that I don't say it enough. I say it sometimes, but I don't say it enough. And that's my mom. Everybody knows most of the time when they see me, they see my mom. My medical team, they know my mom. They're like, you, Monica, where's your mom? Sometimes my mom don't come in the exam room with me, but she do be out there in the lobby area. She be out there talking to patients and talking to people. But my mom has always been there for me. My mom been with me for over 45 years. And that's something I don't talk about enough. I'm thankful for my mother. If it had not been for my mother, I wouldn't have a lot of things. I wouldn't be a lot of places that I've been and have access to a lot of things that I have. And my mother prays for me all the time. She prays with me, for me. And it's interesting, when a lot of people see me, they used to see Monica and Helen, Monica and Helen, Monica and Helen. Even when I go to the hospital and visit patients, a lot of times people will see me and my mom together because we work as a team. And that has been the world to me. Knowing that there's somebody with me going into the hospitals that are talking to patients, and she has a perspective that I don't have. She has that mother perspective. I'm not a mother, but I am a patient. So she's talked to people that have kids or grandkids or have a spouse, and she talked to people about what it means to have a spouse. And my mother's also a caregiver to my father. He might not admit it, and that's okay. But my mom is a caregiver to my father as well. So, and that means a lot because a lot of people don't have caregivers. They don't have somebody to be there for them. They don't have somebody there to cook for them. My mom cooks for me a lot. She cooks for me and my father because sometimes I'm not able to cook for myself, but there are some things I'm not able to do for myself. And I'm thankful for my mom being there for me. I love my mom. I love my sisters. My sisters are always there for me. My father's there for me. There a lot of times they're there even when they don't think they're there for me. And sometimes when they're not physically with me, they're with me spiritually. My family is a great support team that I have. My friends are a great support team that I have, that I love them. I don't think I thank them enough for being there. They don't have to be there. And that's one of the things I don't think people take into consideration when people are doing something for them. People don't have to do nothing. But if they do it, appreciate it. Say thank you. Because even if they're your mother, they're your father, they're your sister, they're your brother, they're your friend, they don't have to do anything. So to them, I say thank you. Another group of people that I want to say thank you, my supporters. I have a lot of supporters that have been supporting me from day one, even before I started advocating. There have been some patients that say, you know, Monica, you need to do this. Monica, you need to do this. Monica, you need to do this. And so you have been that voice that you have been a voice for the voiceless. You have been that person in that forefront for what this community needs for sickle cell patients. And I know some people call me the sickle cell girl, and I'm okay with that. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful for all the people that have followed me on social media, that have subscribed to my YouTube channel, that have been inboxing me, that have been sending me encouraging words, that have sent me encouraging text messages, that have sent me encouraging emails, that have sent me letters in the mail, or sent me different things that I need. To all of you, I'll say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I say thank you to my 44 subscribers. I know one day I'm going to get to 100, and then one day I'm going to get to 1,000. God says, don't despise the day of small beginnings. And I thank each and every one of you for being a support for me, for being there for me. And to you, again, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. Are there any questions? No? Okay.